Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first of its kind event with Vouch. Again, now you might have, if you've gone to some of our past events with Vouch, you probably know that Vouch is an insurance company specifically targeted towards startups. But they're also a startup themselves, and they're a startup on the high growth path, which is kind of our specialty over at Gust. And they've gone through quite the brand evolution in the very short period of time that they've been alive. And this is a topic that we haven't actually been doing a lot of programming on. So I'm super excited to welcome Cassidy Clausen, who is the creative director at Vouch, who has been with the company during these kind of brand approaches and really share that sort of brand building element of a startup. If anybody's seen the famous page of Twitter's first logo back when they were, just an SMS site, that brands evolve, they change. Sometimes you get to the, if 8,000, page or 8,000 word blog post about how, a team of 20 redesigned Airbnb's logo and what they made you want to feel based on the new choice. But in the early days, things are much different. So this should be a fun one. As always, we're going to record this. So we'll share out recordings and links and anything that comes up from Vouch or whatnot that could be useful. We'll send that out in a couple of days once we get everything cleaned up and processed. Chat is open, so feel free to throw in, your startup name, where you're from. Obviously, don't pitch your startup in the chat. We're here to all learn from each other, not a pitch room. But Cassie's also going to do, some questions and whatnot, and use the Q&A, use the chat. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end as well. And without further, no, recording got that. All right, good. Yeah. All right. Without further ado, I will pass this off to Cassidy to take us away.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm Cassidy. I'm a creative director at Vouch, and my responsibility is basically developing and maintaining the Vouch brand. I've been working on brand in the tech startup space for about 10 years here, and I love brand education. So here we are learning what is a brand and how do I get one. Basically, this is the presentation that I wish someone gave me when I was starting out my creative journey or some of my harebrained entrepreneurial adventures. The goal here is to really understand the basics of brand strategy, how it fits into your business over time, as Ryan had mentioned, and then sort of reduce it to practice and really think about how to get your minimum viable brand off the ground. So I'm very excited. We also have a new section today that we've not done before, which is about AI tools. We've gotten a lot of questions about this previously because they're changing the game and they're changing the creative disciplines very, very fast, and they're empowering people like you to build brands quickly. So I'd like to start off by having you throw into the chat. I'm getting a lot of hellos from where you're at. Can you tell me what your stage is in your company building journey and what category you're working on? That will be sort of helpful helpful color as we sort of like unpack this. This is a workshop, so please participate. I know there's a lot of you, but it's a lot more fun when people come off mute, when people share their opinions. The cool thing about brand is there's no wrong answers. It's all about feelings and perceptions, right? So literally everything you add adds value because it's constructive. Let's get right into it. So we're going to start with some getting aligned on some basic vocabulary, right? What is brand? If you ask 10 different creatives what brand is, you're going to get 10 different answers, and maybe they're all valid, but we do have to get aligned just for the sake of having a conversation. So the best way to do that, I think, is to look at some real work and then work up from what you feel to what brand means and what the companies are trying to accomplish. My favorite example here is Uber and Lyft. Biggest business battle of the sort of technology heyday. I don't know if any of you were in San Francisco or in New York in 2015, 2016, when they were super capitalized and fighting it out for market share. It was a really interesting time. And what's fascinating is the offerings were nearly identical, right? You use a phone, punch in an address, a car shows up to take you there. And yet, massive preference for one of these brands or the other emerged in the population, right? Became very segmented. My hypothesis is that this is driven a lot by brand. So here's some of their work from that era. And you can just really feel at first glance, their expression in the world is super different, right? On the left, you have it's dark and mysterious. And on the right, it's kind of light and fun and feels more human. They're clearly leveraging different visual vocabulary. There's hints of different use cases, different benefits implied, right? So maybe someone can come off mute here, someone on Team Uber who loves Uber, and sort of just unpack the brand. What What's happening over there?
Yeah, for those at home, use the raise hand under the reactions, and if you want to come off mute, and I can actually enable that for you,
Ah,
or you can put it in the chat too. You might have to stretch out your Zoom in order to get the reactions bar. But Cassie, you want to put your oh, we got some in the chat saying that Uber is more globally recognized.
Uber is more globally recognized. That's right, they are. Well, I will unpack this as we sort of sort out the participation piece here. But Uber, yeah, let's look at these two brands. So Uber, they are dominated by Black, hues of luxury. It's somewhat faceless. There's use cases around going to work, going to prestigious events, expensive cars, etc. They are basically trying to conjure ideas of luxury and aspiration and ego and ascendance. This is probably mapping to some sort of business strategy that that has identified a sort of target customer that they're trying to grab. And then by contrast, you have Lyft on the right, which is like entirely different, right? It's superhuman. It's bright, it's colorful, it's whimsical. The use case they're highlighting here is going to a concert. They're thanking everybody, they're thanking the drivers, right? So these brands are clearly executing really different strategies. And so as we move forward in this presentation, we're going to try to understand why brands come to look the way they look because they're trying to accomplish certain objectives. So moving forward, what is a, here are some like actual textbook definitions of brand, right? A name, sign, or symbol used to identify items or services of the seller and to differentiate them from goods of competitors. This is like the original definition of brand from like the turn of the century. Literally, you are making flour, it's in a barrel, it's on a train. Your main goal is to ensure that the supply chain integrity, that your good is not like being mistaken for the inferior flour of a competitor. It was really about supply chain, right? Here we have the sort of like a definition from the 1960s and 70s after the post-World War II sort of boom, where we've all seen Mad Men. This is where the advertising industry like really came to be, where these like sort of European Freudian psychological principles run into the the needs of capitalism, and all of a sudden you have the explosion of this industry that's designed to create desire and move the needle in business. So here we say a set of assets or liabilities linked to a brand's name and symbol that adds to or subtracts from the value provided. Interesting, right? The insight here is that the associations that a brand can have can be both tangible and intangible, aka in your mind, and that they can either add or subtract value, right? They can make your business better or worse. Interesting. And then finally, this is a super contemporary definition of brand. Colin Bates, modern brand blogger guy. A brand is a collection of perceptions in the mind of the consumer. And this is, I love this definition because it basically is super encompassing, right? Brand is everything. It gets us away from thinking about logos and typography and color, and it gets us thinking about all the ways that we can make an impact on people's perception about our business. And it's also, importantly, a concession that we do not own our brand, right? Our brand literally lives inside the minds of our prospects and customers, and all we can do is influence it. And this is where I'll give my disclaimer. This presentation is really, this workshop is really about developing a brand strategy and executing to create your foundational marketing materials. But brand is so much more than that, right? It's how you talk, it's your sales, it's how you structure your company, it's everything. So we're going to take a little bit of a narrower focus, but keep that in mind as we're working. So brand equity, another definition. Nice way to think about this is to put up an example, Disney. So if we all agree that brand can positively or negatively impact the value of a good or service, brand equity is a concrete measure of that value, right? So Disney's brand, if you were to carve off the right to call yourself Disney and use this logo mark, get rid of the amusement parks, the catalog, the movies, characters, all of that, just the brand is worth $50 billion. I don't know where their stock price is today, but this is 25% of their total enterprise value. And so that is why people care about brand. That's why the executives at Vouch care about brand. They know that this can move the needle for the business meaningfully. Granted, all of us on this call, we can't measure our brand like Disney does, where they do surveys and they quantify it in various ways. When brand is done well and we have positive brand equity, it will feel like wind at your back, right? Everything will be easier. Your conversion rates will be higher. People are more likely to respond to your emails, etc. So, brand strategy. Brand strategy is the recognition that brand is a mix of tangible and intangible assets, and that it can have concrete value. And this is the business exercise of producing the business outcome that you want with your brand, right? Brand does not have to be an accident. It's not your personality or the culture you want to have with your company. It is a business consideration like any other. So here is a brand strategy framework. Pretty much all great brands that we know that have been constructed, or at least at some point gone through a rigorous brand strategy process. This is David Acker's model. If you buy a box of cereal in the grocery store, it will have gone through this. It would have started with a bunch of like really analytical people looking at the supply chain of corn bits and customer preferences and shelf real estate and what the competitors are doing. And they would put together some sort of brief and they'd slam it down on a creative's desk. And then out comes, like Kix, nutritious corn-based cereal that, parents can believe in and kids still like, whatever. That's like what this is for. You're not going to run something that rigorous as a startup, right? Here's another brand strategy framework. This one's a little bit lighter. This comes from an agency called Xero when I was working with them on a brand for a medical startup. It's simpler. You have a purpose, you have values and offerings, personality, and you have a platform. This is awesome. It can be a great foundation for a design team to go execute a brand. It's still confusing though. It's a lot of words. You have to translate a lot of emotional meaning and business objectives into creative output. A lot can be lost in translation. Stakeholders can get confused. It's tough. There's another brand framework, one that I love. It's a little bit controversial. It's called the Brand Archetypes Framework. And this is the one that we're going to spend 10 minutes learning, because I believe if you learn this in 10 minutes, you will become better at brand thinking than half the professionals working in the space today. So the way this works is basically, it borrows from Jungian archetypes, which are basically these 12 characters that appear through stories across cultures and through history, and they feel basically timeless, universal, and instantly recognizable, right? You can probably conjure associations just looking at this list. The jester, the creator, the innocent, the sage, etc. So the sort of thinking here is that your customer is the hero. They're trying to accomplish something. They're either, they're trying to keep their house clean and they need to buy soap, or they are trying to build a company, they need to protect it, they need to buy business insurance. They are on some sort of journey, either small or very, very big. And they're going to have a bunch of guides along the way, right? That's all the brands they surround themselves in life, all the products and services that they consume. We are one of those as a company with a product on the market. And so the question is, what kind of guide do you want to be? And so you can sort of circle this wheel, and by embracing one of these characters, you then show up with a lot of sort of a bunch of cultural foundational associations that if the character is properly chosen, can give you an enormous advantage and leg up in sort of building your brand and creating something super crisp. So the best way to learn this is to get into it and actually play a game. This is when, for real, we're going to have to get happening in the chat, I guess, if people can't come off mute. But the way I've set this up is we have our archetypes on the left. We have some creative on the right from the market, starting with the tech company here. And we just have to match them, right? So I'm doing the first one for you. This is Lemonade. They are a fellow insurtech, and they are a quintessential innocent brand. And the reason we're starting with innocent is because innocent has been the default archetype and brand strategy for tech companies for the past 10 years, basically since the dot-com bubble. There are cracks in the facade here, obviously, but the sort of foundational promise is that the innocent stands for an ideal future where we're all happy and equal and life is easy and everything is comfortable. And you see it show up here with these like kind of bright colors, this like child children's book illustration style. Everything is in place. It feels safe, happy, and pure, right? Here we've got another brand example of this, Slack, another quintessential innocent brand. You can see this sort of stylized hyper reality of this work. It's almost like a kindergarten. Here we have employees represented as animals. What could be more sort of innocent than that? A woman literally clutching like a balloon animal. And then I think most interestingly, here is when Microsoft launched the Teams product, Slack responded by taking out full-page ads in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. They basically wrote them a letter of advice saying, hey, here's everything we've learned about collaboration and communication. Like, we hope this can be helpful to you as you enter this space. What is that really? That is like a savage attack ad, but it's an attack ad filtered through the lens of the innocent archetype. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that if you can embrace an archetype, and it can clarify, or it can, everything you're trying to do can be filtered through it so that you end up with a really pure and consistent and brand aligned expression of it. Our last example of the innocent is this brand Twine from John Hancock. This is a brand that I worked on. This is probably when I became kind of good at my job and could finally bring together all the threads of this discipline and actually execute good work. And it was a classic and pure innocent brand. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to you. We've done the innocent thoroughly. Let's look at Harley Davidson. What is Harley Davidson's brand archetype?
Hang on, I will actually launch a poll for this.
Oh, wow, look at that.
So we will be able to see in real time what people think. I had to leave off creator because they only allowed me a certain amount of answers, but I'm going to guess that Harley Davidson isn't the creator archetype.
Holy smokes. Well, Rebel has come in strong and Rebel is totally right. Is it possible for people to, will someone come off mute and tell us why this is a Rebel brand? What do you see?
Yeah, you should be able to come off mute. You just have to raise your hand or identify yourself in chat and I will allow you to talk. So if you don't have the raise hand and the reaction.
Alan, we've got Alan.
Awesome. Here we go. Alan, you should be ready to chat. You're just muted.
I did. So the essence here is you don't want to be like everyone else. You want to be the differential. And this is the cool, hip way to be that differential.
100%, Alan, you nailed it. That's right. This archetype is all about counter positioning against the mainstream. It is super powerful. You're basically saying, we found a better way to do something. The normal way is bad. The new way is better. Come join us. We are a cult. You can build really powerful brands with this archetype, assuming you have an enemy. Thank you, Ellen, for your participation. Let's keep going. FedEx.
Let me see if I can do another poll super fast.
You got 12 polls to spin up.
Yeah. I'm gonna relaunch it. It's still gonna say Harley, but we're gonna relaunch it again. Here we go. So this is FedEx instead of Harley.
Ooh, okay, wow. There we go. A little more differentiation. Some false starts, but with a hero took the lead, and the answer is hero. Can someone walk us through what they see here?
Looking for anybody. Hand raising is under reactions. You can also just say, here we go. We got somebody. We got Brian. Brian, you are good to talk. Brian Leonard.
All right. So the first thing that I see here really is that they're the hero because they won't stop at anything. I mean, you got a guy walking through snow that's taller than his hands, basically. So this is like, we'll stop at nothing.
That's exactly right. You see it. I mean, it's in the tagline, literally, whatever it takes. The hero archetype is in there fighting alongside you. You don't need them. You don't need this brand to be the smartest or the most sophisticated or the most intriguing. You need them to be the bravest and the most committed, right? What more would you want from your delivery service?
So I have a quick question based on, there is some interesting distribution along caregiver and explorer. I can see that interpretation, right? Like this is, a wasteland, not a wasteland, a snowy thing with one person, but even like, leveraging your package above, sacrificing yourself is a heroic thing, but it's also a caregiving thing. So is there overlaps on archetypes or is it?
Yeah, you know what? A lot of, I think that for one thing to flag, probably 3 to 5% of brands have been created using this archetype framework. This is not like a universally used sort of system for creating brands, but any brand can be interpreted through the lens of an archetype. And if you can't get to something that looks like consensus around what the archetype of a brand is, that brand has probably failed to articulate itself successfully, no matter what archetype no matter what framework they use to create themselves, right? Does that make sense? So it's a framework for both creation and interpretation. With that said, sophisticated brand folks can totally put these things together. You could say, hey, I am a sage rebel or whatever, but the sort of what's the thermodynamic principle where everything kind of goes to shit? I can't remember what
Entropy.
Entropy. The entropy of a brand is basically always pulling you towards diffusion and less clarity and muddiness and generic, right? That when you try to scale doing brand at a big company, it's really hard. So choosing one is a powerful tool to basically just stay committed to what you are, because it gives you a higher chance of being successful in the world.
And I think what's interesting about this example in particular is if you took off that sticker on the bottom right, it would be easier to interpret this as like maybe explorer, maybe caregiver, but they're like, you know what, whatever it takes. Like that's a heroic, like pushing in on it.
I totally agree. I mean, that's what the messaging does. It reinforces the art direction, and the messaging should reinforce each other. I would say that if you look at the clarity of like what is actually being said here, it is hero, though there is texture of explorer. Like clearly they're in a rugged mountain, whatever. So there's some noise in the execution of the art direction and photography in this case. Okay, here we go. We've got next one up. We've got the infamous brand, First Republic.
Why you got to do this to us on this week?
Let's think about First Republic as of 2 weeks ago, right? When we all loved them and admired them. Because yeah, what's going on here?
So I was also able to remove some of the already chosen categories and name them. We're getting fast and flying with the polls right now.
I'm loving the clarity people are having around caregiver.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah, because this one to me is actually a bit more. No, yeah, I guess.
Okay, I'm going to talk through these for the sake of time, because I want to get to the AI stuff. Caregiver, yeah, that's the caregiver brands are all about empathy and supreme commitment to service and taking care of people. That can be both on the individual level and on the broader level. You can see this with like sort of social brands like Tom's Shoes. They pioneered the give one, buy one, get one, so give one model. And in this case, what's compelling about this brand is they've taken some old-timey concepts of luxury and service, right? A banker in a trench coat. They've brought it down to sort of the mid-market, and they've sort of doubled down on this idea that you can have a private banker at your service. Super interesting, super compelling. You know, you can really see it with a umbrella over a dog. Okay, here's another example from the tech space, Expensify, right? They've really embraced the kind of social giving, taking care of your employees aspects of their card and their offering. Pretty interesting. Think about it compared to Brex. And I'm curious what is a better strategy there. All right, here we've got Old Spice. Let's do another poll on this one.
Okay, yeah. One of my favorite brand evolutions, I guess you could say.
Truly incredible story. This was, I mean, I'm here in Portland, Oregon. This was done by White & Kennedy across the street, the agency that our town is known for. And they took this old-timey boomer brand and they relaunched it in the late 90s, early 2000s for kind of, at the time, young millennial audience. And it was just massively successful. Everyone sees it here. It is a jester brand. The jester is a super interesting archetype. If from back to kind of the Jungian foundations here, the jester is the only character in the king's court that could make fun of the king without being beheaded. And so at surface level, the jester brand is funny and fun and charismatic, and it pulls you in by stopping you and grabbing your attention, right? But under the hood, what the jester brand allows you to do is hold a mirror up, either to society or to your competitor, and point out flaws tastefully. And what they're doing here is they are playing with kind of old and new concepts of masculinity in sort of a subversive but also indulgent way. I'm sure you could write a college thesis on this. Whatever it was, it worked, right? Because they were able to critique while also selling. Very interesting. Here's an example of a jester brand in tech, Gong. This is This is a very cool sales software. And they really are tapped into kind of the hard charging, fun loving salesperson archetype. And this brand is beloved by that community. Here we've got another guess. Let's try to map Ted to its archetype.
You are basically making me speed run this, and I'm very pleased with the tools that I have found in order to do it for once from Zoom.
And people are keeping up. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a fight between Explorer and Sage. This is fun. I've never had the real-time results. Okay, but consensus is emerging.
Sage is winning
Sage
out.
is pulling away, right? And it is. This is a Sage brand. Like the foundation that in their sort of hero brand messaging, ideas change this world. That is the foundational premise of the Sage, that the mind and intellect is the solution to our problems, right? That we can reason our way out of our struggles and get to a better world together. In this case, the art direction is super literal. You literally have people with little brooms going through a conveyor belt, and out they come, you know, smart little white collar people with briefcases, right? They're literally being transformed by this mind. This is a Vita. This is a revolutionary in South America. I think I actually don't know the whole story, but it's about that. It's about that transformation. This is a brand that was this archetype was very crisply applied to Wealthfront, which is a robo-advisor savings and investing app. You can really, basically their entire brand promise is, we've hired the smartest people, the most PhDs, we've crunched the most numbers, we have the most data. Look at us, we have a drawing of people doing math on a whiteboard. That's why you should trust us. It's not that we're the biggest, it's not that we're the oldest, it's that we are the smartest, right? Pretty interesting. Okay, next up, we've got Lego.
Ooh, that's a good one. I can squeeze one in for this. Yeah, this one I thought was going to be a fight.
Interesting. And there it is. Yep. The winner pulls away. Creator. Lego is indeed a creator brand. The creator brand is all about empowering people to make things. And those things can be literal and tangible. It could be tools to help someone, you know, with their home remodel or to build a business. It can also be their identity. It can be some combination of the above, but it's basically saying the heroes in our world are the people that make, and we help people make. And so what you see here in this creative, which is really brilliant, is that, you know, this kid is literally playing with Legos, and they're also building an astronaut suit around them. Astronaut being cultural shorthand for successful, prosperous, successful child. What more does a parent want than for their kid to grow up and be an astronaut, AKA, you know, a lawyer, an engineer, someone who's, you know, successful and self-reliant. So that is basically the message to the parents, right? Through play, you can make, and through making, you can create a successful future. Here we have this brand archetype was masterfully applied with the sort of the B2B dev tools, Stripe, Plaid, etc. Basically what they said is, hey, all those people that went to Stanford that are running these businesses, whatever, they don't matter. The real heroes of the technology ecosystem are the developers. They are the engineers, and we make the stuff that enables them to be even more powerful. So very interesting archetype in the tech space.
Oh, it won hands down. Like there were so many other people who did other things at the time, Braintree, PayPal, things like that. But I remember I was a developer 10 years ago that implemented Stripe, and it was like that paragraph you put right there would have been like music to my ears.
That's right. Yeah, it cut through the noise and was really resonant. And part of it mapped back to a business strategy, which is that they said, hey, you know what could work is a bottoms up sales process where developers adopt this and push management to buy it. So that's how the brand archetype mapped to the business strategy. Last thing I'll say about that, I think the most famous billboard in San Francisco is probably Ask Your Developer, right? It's Twilio's work, same archetype. Okay,
Yep.
Next up, we've got Tesla.
I can get one out for that.
I will flag that I think if Elon Musk knew we were trying to interpret his brand with this framework, he would make fun of us and tell us we're stupid. But here we go. All right. Explorer. Explorer has won. Well, sorry to let you down. Explorer is not the one that we're trying to talk about, though we could certainly argue about what Tesla really is here. if you look past the stunt of okay, think about what is this really, right? This is a car being launched by a rocket floating around the Earth. That is at its core a magic trick, right? And so the archetype we're trying to talk about is the magician. And what is the magician? The magician is a brand that shows up and can surprise, delight, and do never before seen things, usually with technology. Quintessential example, Apple's a complicated brand. I'm not sure if you can put them in one box, but you can certainly put Steve Jobs in a box. And the way that he would run his keynotes, prowling the stage, pulling sheets off of computers, framing the iPod as 1,000 songs in your pocket, everything was through the lens of magic. So if you have an offering that is actually truly meaningfully surprising and new and differentiated, this can be a very powerful archetype for highlighting that. An example of this would be Palantir, right? Palantir, on the one hand, is possibly the most boring business in the entire world. It's a bunch of data scientists that partner with the government to crunch numbers and deliver reports. They have somehow reframed their business using this kind of brand strategy to basically be like this magical mix of technology and people that can unlock new futures that we had no idea, whatever. So this is an interesting application of that to something that maybe didn't seem obvious. All right, we're coming up on the end here. Let's talk about Rolex. What brand archetype is this?
Getting it out. I like how you made these. It seems like you made these go in order, but be more difficult, even though there's less choices at the end.
That's right. Yeah, I tried to ramp it up, but still people are getting it.
Yeah.
And yes, Ruler has pulled away. I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? Like literally a crown for every achievement. Their logo has a crown in it. So what is the Ruler? Fundamentally, the Ruler is the master of their domain. They are the category leader. They are the best. And typically this is a brand archetype that is suited either for premium or luxury kind of offerings, right? Where there is some kind of currency of status involved, right? So basically customers engage with this brand to get the halo effect of power, influence, prestige, and they can sort of, by wearing the watch, they can bring those associations and put them on themselves and bring them into their everyday life. That is sort of like the basic mechanics of how this works. There's some interesting nuance here between sort of luxury, which is basically, luxury is the demonstration of superfluous wealth, whereas premium is choosing the best features for your life. Both are expensive, but there is a difference. And if you're playing in that world, you should really tease out which you are, because Rolex is squarely luxury, but there's other Ruler brands that are more just premium. So Brex is a great example of a Ruler brand. Their brand has since been highly diluted because they were starting to get into some brand problems. But when they came to market, whenever that was in 2017 or 2018, if you were in San Francisco, they bought every single billboard in town. Basically, they transformed the billboard industry overnight and basically invented an entirely new go-to-market strategy. And by doing this and coming out with this really impactful creative, they basically successfully positioned their corporate card as a status symbol for founders. Incredible Ruler brand strategy supported by like a great execution, goes down in the record books. Okay, so that we now come to the last three. Here we can do a speed round, just matching them up real fast. Häagen-Dazs, the lover. This is just all about sort of romance, indulgence, connection, etc. I've never really worked on a lover brand or had, I think they're probably pretty rare in tech, but that would be fun. Here we have Jeep Explorer. There's been a lot of guesses at Explorer, right? Because we've had some art direction with end of the world type imagery, but like really Jeep brings it home, right? Like Jeep is about the brand promise is that you can basically explore anything in the world. It's quite literal. And then finally, the most interesting one to me is the citizen or the every person, right? This is the only brand archetype that purports to be, not living in some kind of stylized hyper reality, right? But to be celebrating the everyday, the mundane, the average, You'll see this with value brands, like Walmart, IKEA, whatever. It's basically heroing what is normal and typical. It's a really interesting strategy. So that gets us to the end here. I hope you all felt that, I hope you all going through that were able to start fine-tuning your ability to discern the strategies that were underlying the creative that you were seeing, right? Because that is the first step in becoming good at brand and building your own brand is being able to discern. So I would challenge you to go through the world, look for these archetypes. You should be able to see them. So you, as the start of your brand process, could use this strategy framework and could choose an archetype. And the things to remember are, this is not your personality, your personal tastes and preferences don't matter, and your aspirations for internal culture don't matter. You can build a successful, healthy culture with any archetype. What you need to think about is the positioning of your offering, customer insights, company proof points, etc. You need to make a business case for your archetype. Here's a little case study, right? So here we've got a emerging industry. You've got one major competitor. They are more capitalized with more market share, AKA you're kind of losing, but they have major PR brand vulnerabilities. What we need to do is counter position against the competitor's brand problems. What better way to do that than the Jester? And so if we look at this creative again, you can very much see that Uber was first to market. They chose the ruler brand archetype because it was a more desirable customer. It created a halo effect, and it also positioned them as category leader. And Lyft, I believe, was really left to counter position against Uber. I like Lyft's brand better, but I would rather be in Uber's. I'd rather be on the Uber brand team in the sense of I think that it's probably going to be more successful long term. Here's another case study. You're in a legacy industry. It's highly fragmented. It's a commoditized offering. You think that it will soon be a winner take most market. And there's a few startups competing for it. You have a ton of momentum. You're doing great. You're winning in your niche. You think you're going to roll this up and you're going to build a flywheel to be successful. You want to be the ruler. And why do you want to be the ruler? Just like Uber, it allows you to declare yourself the category leader. And that is Vouch, right? And it all maps back to our tagline, the insurance of tech. We've basically come in and we have declared that we own this space, right? And it's because it's contested turf, we have sort of occupied this brand area. We've elbowed people out, and assuming we can sort of rise to the occasion, keep up these awesome partnerships. I'm sorry, Ryan, that we don't have your logo up here. Maybe someday we'll do a billboard together. This is a very powerful archetype in this business scenario. So here's some, here's some creative from our campaigns, and hopefully you can feel those ruler vibes coming through because we really tried to stick with it. So, okay, that is the end of that portion of this presentation, the archetypes. Now we're going to sort of dissect some brands super fast and then get into how to make a brand. So I'm going to introduce the concept of brand surface area. This is important. You should know where your brand is going to live, right? Starbucks has super smart people and agencies thinking about every little touch point, right? The product in your hands, the people, the marketing, the app, the space, etc. You should do the same thing for your company. What does that look like for a tech company? Well, let's break it down a little bit. Here's a nice case study. This is Hinge. They did some really cool, they did great campaign in a couple of years ago. I saw this work in New York and thought it was really resonant. So let's look at how all of the work comes together in a user journey to see how brand and marketing work together to drive the desired outcome, which is installing apps, right? So here we are. You are on a subway. You have not heard of Hinge. You are single. You see an ad, right? Hinge lives and dies for your great dates. Interesting. This is awareness, right? This is the part where you are learning what Hinge is and getting some hint at what the offering is, right? Because of some very creepy ass MarTech that exists in the world, they know that your phone was nearby this ad. So when you went home and started watching Hulu, you saw a Hinge long form video ad, right? 30 seconds. This is now the consideration phase. So they're going to use the same brand creative to now tell a story about the benefits of using Hinge, why they're different from the competition, maybe some proof points, some features, etc. Now they know you've watched that, they're going to start getting you in your feed. That's where you're arriving at their conversion step, right? This is performance marketing. This is where you're seeing some creative that is really designed to drive action, to get you to install Hinge. Then you're going to get into that app store, you're going to see the assets, and then you're going to install. And so that is the journey. So what do we have here? We have campaign work, right? The campaign is a subset of the brand that is out there trying to accomplish a specific thing. That sort of usually lives under the umbrella of marketing and is typically separate from the product organization. So we're sort of talking about the funnel and like concepts for how this is organized, and also like org structure, right? Some companies, so yeah, brand basically sits on top of all of this. Brand as a discipline typically lives in a marketing team. Usually the brand people report to some head of marketing or something like that, and they work with a bunch of channel owners to bring everything to life. Some companies will actually take the brand auspice and put it over and into product. And they will do that because some products really need super tight brand cohesion through the whole experience, typically consumer stuff. I can imagine that like these meditation apps or something might have a philosophy like this. The trade-off is that it's slower, right? It's a lot easier to have your marketing team and your product team separate. So let's zoom in even tighter here to learn about who actually does this work and how it gets made in the world. Let's look at Plaid. Plaid is a super cool, they're like the financial, underpinnings, their API.
Share your bank info with everyone.
Yeah, that's right. They share your bank info. Nicely said. So what is their brand here? There's a lot happening on this screen and a lot of people contributed. The first thing you've got is a name, right? Plaid. It's actually a really good name. You could imagine another universe where this was called like BankNet or Bankster.io or something, and that would not be as good. Next up, you've got the logo, right? This is part of the brand identity. Brand identity is comprised of your logo, which is usually comprised of a logo mark and a logo type. You don't necessarily need to have a logo mark. This is where you get back to that surface area thing. Are you a consumer app that's on an iPhone? Well, maybe you need an app icon, maybe you need a logo mark. Brand identity is also your colors and your typography. All of this is usually done by a brand designer. A brand designer is like they're the artsiest designer you'll find in the tech ecosystem, basically. Beret wearing, super tapped into the feelings and emotions that come from these very, very subtle color typographical choices. Here you can see some of the brand identity work that we've done. All of this should come together to create the very subtle perceptions of alignment with your brand strategy, right? So next up, you've got creative direction. This is my job. This is where you're basically making sure that the overall execution of your brand assets successfully aligns with your strategy and achieves your business outcome. The parts that you're kind of overseeing are messaging, art direction, and design. Messaging. This is what you are saying to your audience. Brand messaging is that highly strategic top-level stuff that is fun and grippy and grabbing. This is typically done by the kind of brand copywriters. These people are often not the same as copywriters who are down here writing the pages and pages of kind of more descriptive writing about functional and emotional benefits and that sort of thing. These are two different disciplines, often done by different people. Next up, you've got art direction, right? What is art direction? It's the unique visual system that supports the messaging, helps you tell your story, usually by visualizing your ideas in some way and reinforcing your emotional benefits, right? So this could be illustration, could be photography, it could just be product screenshots, shapes, textures. It's your whole visual storytelling system. And then the last thing you've got is design. And design is the person who puts it all together, right? They take the art direction, they take the messaging, they take the identity system, and they just execute the touch points, right? They make the home pages, they make the collateral, etc. People get into a lot of trouble when they ask a designer to build a brand because they are just one part of this bigger thing. And designers, unfortunately, often don't know their limitations in this regard. And so they will make something, but the odds of it being strategically aligned to what you're trying to accomplish are not always high. So we've broken down a couple brands here. We understand who's doing what. Let's see, I'm checking the chat just to make sure we're all good. We're all good. Now we're going to talk about how you actually get a brand. Okay, so first principle here is your brand is a business consideration, right? It's like anything else. It's like your product or your engineering or your teams or whatever. It will improve with an investment of resources. It matters more or less to different companies at different stages, and it will grow and evolve, just like the rest of your company, right? So a lot of people stress about having a brand when they don't necessarily need to, or maybe they think that they don't need a brand, but they really do. So that's an important thing for you to figure out as you're building your business, right? Like, and I can't do that for you, but here's some guidelines that might be thought starters for you, right? So how important is the quality of your brand? Well, it's less important usually for enterprise, for sales-driven companies. If you have value positioning, aka you're kind of cheap, there's a lot of competition, etc. It's more important in the consumer space. If it's self-serve, meaning people have to like autonomously drive themselves through a funnel, you need the quality to be high. Your positioning is premium, fewer larger competitors, etc. So you should try to figure that out, right? How important is this really? And then once you know that, you can think about what is your minimum viable brand, right? And this is the way I think about this is say, what do I need from my brand to achieve my next business objective, right? You don't need to figure it all out, but you need to figure out enough to get yourself there. And it's different for everyone, right? It might be DIY, you know, with some templates and stock illustrations or whatever. Maybe you have to go look at some of your competitors and say, you know what my strategy is here is to blend in. I'm going to just look like a credible brand. I'm not going to think too hard about it. And then I'm going to hit the pavement and me and my sales team are going to go sell this thing. Or maybe you need to hire a fancy agency and actually really carve out some white space and get this thing right. Here's the typical brand startup life cycle that I see. Here we are, we're at the beginning, right? You're launching your minimum viable brand. You'll spend between nothing and 25,000 bucks on this, maybe more if you're like a direct-to-consumer company that's raised a bunch of money. What you want your minimum viable brand to do is enable you to iterate on your positioning and messaging, right? It's not going to be perfect. You need to be able to, however, in whatever channels you're working, you need to be able to run ads, change the copy, and set up a learning loop because you're trying to generate insights, just like you're doing as you're trying to find product market fit. You're trying to find product brand fit, right? And so you're going to get hints. And we can talk more about that later, but that's sort of the goal here. Then you're going to read that, you're going to hit some sort of inflection point. Things are going to be going. And this is where you get to that awkward teenage years where you're trying to drag your sort of crappy startup brand into the future. It's bursting at the seams. It's not good enough. It's scaling. You're just trying to keep up with your business. And usually when people get to Series A, that's when they're like, okay, we have to rebrand this thing. Let's bring in some experts. We're going to run a real process here. We're going to get something awesome. My advice to you here is really embrace this as a full reset. Like you may think you have brand equity at this stage. In the grand scheme of things, you don't. 99% of your business is ahead of you, right? So like rename yourself if you have to. Just start from scratch, do it right. Then often people rebrand again. Usually it's more subtle. It's a refinement phase. This usually happens Series B, C, whatever. That's usually when you'll decide to build your own internal brand team. And they're going to come in and they're going to start like figuring things out and giving you another fresh start. People typically hire an agency at Series A because you just can't. It's very hard to have the talent inside to do what you need to do what you need to do.
I think there's a hidden message here too, is that if you are, near launch or pre-product market fit and you're spending time talking with agencies or marketers to fuss over like colors and should we go skeuomorphic or should we go whatever, you are probably not spending time on the right part of your business.
That's right. That's all about that resource allocation question. You just got to do it at the right time. Okay, so how do you actually build a brand? Let's put this all together. Step one is to take a stab at your brand strategy, even if you're going to do this fast. If you liked the framework you saw here, a great way to learn more about it is to read this book, The Hero and the Outlaw. I think a few archetypes will jump out as viable. Then the important step is to basically stress test them a little bit. Like make a spreadsheet, put in your 3 archetypes that you think make sense, choose the business dimensions that you think matter, authenticity, alignment, resonance, competition, market dynamics, whatever, and just sort of like put the trade-offs in. This gives us an advantage here. This is a liability here. This is what we did for Vouch. You're looking at literal.
Yeah, I was going to say, this looks like Vouch.
Right? This is Vouch as the sage. We very well could have been a super intellectual, data-driven company. We could have been the innocent. Simple quotes, thoughtful conversations. We tried a bunch on, and ultimately we decided on the ruler because it gave us the most business advantages. Next up, explore the brand promise. This is where you flesh that out, right? The archetype is a cartoon. It gets you directionally right. You need to make it yours, right? So this is the simplest possible framework for that. Answer the question, what your brand cares about and offers customers with 3 pillars, 3 concepts, right? For Vouch, it's trust, leadership, and growth. We looked at our other fellow ruler brands and we sort of thought, who do we want to be here? Well, we actually don't want to be Uber. We don't want to be Rolex. They're too status oriented. We want to be like American Express, right? American Express is a category leader that is also measured, thoughtful, accessible. That's our sort of brand North Star. Okay, next up, you got to choose a name. At a minimum, make sure your name isn't bad. And if you can, align your name to a brand strategy. Here's some generic tips. Consonants are good. They give you structure and punch. Alliteration is great. Don't do airy words. Don't remove vowels and try to avoid these trends. They just kind of always go stale. And it's sort of like, oh, I know when you raised your seed round based on what your name is. We try to not do that. The next thing to do is figure out freedom to operate. This is super simple. The trademark office runs this thing called TESS. And you can just go literally type your names in and look at all the live trademarks. And if there's a live trademark that's near your category, don't name yourself that. If it's far away, if there's a food bar named the same as you, well, then maybe you're good to go. I would still suss them out. If they're owned by General Mills or whatever, you're probably still going to get a cease and desist, even though technically you could probably make a case that you can operate. Here's a technical guide to names. Basically what we've done here is we've inventoried the sort of anatomy of names. This is literally how the trademark office looks at names. And then I've grabbed some examples. So your simplest name is something that's called descriptive, right? Tenant Turner. This is a YC company that basically prevents tenants from leaving their leases. This is basically not possible to trademark. It's just too descriptive. The trademark office would reject you. You shouldn't name yourself this. There's hybrid names. This is where you combine English words to create a sort of hint at your offering. Message Bird, Flexport, SnapDocs, Instaworks. This is bad for consumer. Consumer brands are not named this way. It will just ring bad or fake. It can be okay for business to business. You can usually get a trademark. Suggested names are getting better. This hints at the offering, right? Cruise, Fair, Clerky, etc. Empty Vessel and Coin are where you want to be. An empty vessel name is something like Apple, right? You just choose an English word, totally free of associations, and you build those associations over time. Coined is even better. It's when you literally invent a new word for your company. Someone in my last workshop flagged rippling is actually not a coined word. So good eye, seemed new to me. In any case, both of these are really hard to do because they always sound stupid when you're just looking at it in a Word doc, right? Who looked at Gem and was just yeah, we should name our totally unrelated SaaS company Gem. It can be hard to make that choice, but you should be brave because these names are better. Next up is your messaging. I'm going to propose a very simple framework to get your messaging sorted out. Here's how it works. You need to fill this out to figure out how to market your product. Your core message is your one sentence that basically if I was in the market for a year, this is what I would want a customer to say back to me about who I am. Your emotional benefits are the way that people should feel that makes them feel good when they use your product or service. Your functional benefits are the concrete material business benefits of using your product. And then your features and proof points are all your supporting evidence. So for Vouch, this looked like this, right? We are the best business insurance for venture-backed startups. Our emotional benefits to founders are credibility, confidence, and momentum, right? You're getting something done, you're feeling good, you're in good company, and you know that Vouch is going to be there for when you need it. Speed, simplicity, guidance, blah, blah, blah. You should do this for yourself. Then you can translate this to your sort of high-level brand messaging, right? So here I'm looking at the idea of confidence and trying to write some sort of grippy headline brand messages, right? Unfortunately, leadership means getting insurance right. Ensuring good company. App startups insure with Vouch. I'm careful, you'll notice, to map the sort of category of message to what I'm working on. Powered by code, not PDFs. Click for coverage. Our policy is that you understand your policy, your startup properly insured, etc. This is all just like workshopping, feeling it out, trying to build the brand. So now you get into the brand design and art direction. Here we did a pretty rigorous process. This is what we started with. This was our MVP, our minimum viable brand. A very talented designer made it. We were starting here and we needed to rebrand. We worked on our art direction. We were exploring this historic illustration style, very high credibility, Wall Street Journal kind of editorial style, trying it on, looking at it in these sort of fake mock-ups. This is all just the discovery process. Then we got into a whole nother concept, like this is a more divergent to take. You know, what if we looked like this, trying on those messages that you saw, trying it on with some fake policy documents, some swag, whatever. We ultimately chose the first version there. And then the last bit is like your UX and copy. My advice here is like, what matters is the hierarchy of your pages as you get to, let me back up. I'm assuming that you're probably going to work on your homepage as your sort of flagship brand asset. That's where basically everyone starts. And it's a great place because it kind of makes you tell your whole story. And so it's like a complete brand asset. And so my suggestion for approaching that is to like go copy a nice landing page and map in the sort of sections and then sort of fill it in Google Docs. Don't confuse copy and design because they can kind of hurt each other when they're done together. And then the last part is production, right? I recommend, you know, design everything in Figma. It's kind of the state of the art right now. Build stuff in Webflow. Here we went and hired our illustrator. He's literally the guy who draws for the Wall Street Journal. We had him translate these like simple examples into icons, and off we went. And that's how we built that first brand. So that is the end of sort of like the scrappy approach to getting a brand over the line. We have 2 minutes left. A lot of people are curious about AI. And I'm just going to do a little speed run. You might be thinking, that looks hard. It kind of is. Can AI help? Let's find out. So this morning, literally like an hour before this meeting, I built a brand from scratch using AI. The Made Up company was a software company that made a basically, the idea here is they make software for satellite companies that allows them to remotely monitor, diagnose, and repair their satellites. So I went to ChatGPT and I told them what this company did. And I asked for 10 coin names and 10 empty vessel names. It actually got a little confused on what coin and empty vessel meant, but we got a cool one. So I chose Zillium. Then I went in with messaging. I taught it. I basically said, hey, here's the emotional benefits of this thing. Here's some functional benefits. Give me a high-level headline that communicates the emotional benefit. Give me a description that also includes the functional benefits. A lot of gobbledygook that sucks, but look at that, confidence in every orbit. That's kind of cool. I like that. I went to Midjourney. They just released version 5 this week. It's incredible. I asked for some logos, right? It doesn't know how to spell clearly, but like it came out with some stuff that I thought was like interesting. Look at that X. Okay, not really sure what the brand strategy is here, but I can run with it. I then asked for a font recommendation. ChatGPT then logged me out, so forgive the grayscale here, but they suggested Montserrat and Playfair Display. Sounds fine. I like that pairing. Asked for a color palette in Midjourney. You can see I'm saying, hey, give me a color palette. Technology, space, brain, confident, elegant, brave. Looks good. I went in, did a little art direction. I say, give me an abstract background image of a glowing white space, fleet of satellites, ribbon of pixels and data, stars and galaxies. I first tried it in just with space, and I was like, you know what? That looks like every space brand. What if we reversed it? What if we made it white? So I exercised a little bit of creative judgment, got something else. I like the results. Put it all together. Here's our brand for Zillium. Confidence in every orbit. Keep your satellites online with Zillium's all-in-one monitoring and repair software, ensuring cost savings and optimal risk management. This is pretty good for an hour. It is not super strategically aligned, but in terms of like an MVP that allows you to get out there and learn, it maybe gets the job done. So what does this mean for AI? It means I'll be out of a job soon. So if anyone's hiring, maybe I guess I can't learn to code either. That's going away also. That's what we're going to do. Anyway, here are some tips. break the problems down into tiny pieces, use the frameworks, the ones that we talked about here. Remember the brand archetypes. ChatGPT knows what the brand archetypes are. Use the messaging framework. You can tell it what it is. It knows what functional and emotional benefits are. You need to break these things down into tiny pieces, teach the tool what you're trying to accomplish, teach it the framework, and then ask for a lot of results. And then your job is basically curating and refining. I think you can get something that's like insulting to all of the creative professionals of the world, but we'll get the job done for you.
Well, like one of my favorite so I'm an art school dropout that switched over into engineering. But one of my favorite things a professor in art school told me is that, and I think this is ringing my doorbell day to day, especially with AI, like you said, the curation element, the idea that, you can put a lot of junk out there, but you can identify the stuff that's good. And what my professor said to me is like, your skills are always going to improve. You're not going to do the best art in college that you're capable of doing. And literally hand control is like, but the reason you got into this is because of taste. Your ability to identify something and say, that's good, that fits. That is something that actually will grow with you throughout your career. But it's also kind of why you're attracted to this in the first place. And I think that's a great metaphor for using AI. It's like, yeah, it's not going to answer everything right all the time. But if it gives you 10 names and your taste can be like, oh, that's a coin name. So maybe you'll still have a job in a little bit, Cassidy.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, this is typically the role of a creative director at a large agency is distilling all the work from all of the teams down into, curating what is good and then doubling down on it and refining it and getting it to great. So ChatGPT is just another source of inspiration. This is, we're over time. We can be done. I'm happy. I don't have to leave, so I'm happy to stay on and workshop anybody's actual real brand problems or questions. If there's anyone who would like to stay over, this last slide is basically some recommendations for creative agencies that I've worked with and like. They can still get this done really fast and easy. Some of them are more affordable. I really like Nimble Creative and 80/20. One of them is a fast strategy first design agency. The other one is a super fast Webflow development company. So they're a good to consider pairing up. Zero, Butcher Shop, and Franklin are better for kind of Series A. Probably not going to get much without 100, 150K, but if that's where you're at, they're a great option there too. So that's the end of my content. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you, Ryan, for your hosting. I saw someone mention they're going to go buy some Vouch insurance. That is fantastic. It is good.
Yeah, actually, we do have a link. So this wasn't really insurance based, but Vouch, as you can see, we brought them back for several programming. We really like them. They're spiritually aligned with kind of what we want to approach with the startup space. So if you are interested in needing startup insurance and their ruler-like methodology has convinced you that they are a good choice for it, we do have a good link where I believe there's a small discount on some of the premiums too, which I will try to find if Nelia doesn't have it offhand, but it will definitely be in the follow-up emails. So use that link and you get attached with them. We do have a couple questions that I will jump into if you're down for it, Cassidy.
Let's do it.
Oh, there we go. It's in the vouch.us/Gust. I think Joe asked, why did Vouch choose its brand and logo? I think you basically covered that. I think he asked that before you actually demonstrated all the materials for that. But Joe, if you have an additional question on that, just throw it in the Q&A. Feme asks, what about, would you use the same approach when reaching early adopters?
When reaching early adopters, I'm not sure I understand the question. Whoever asked that, can they add a little more color?
Yeah, my gut says it's just would you go through a brand process if, the first people that you're going to get to use your service and or product, you're actually going to be able to talk to. And I think this kind of leaned more on if it's sales, if you're literally selling yourself as well as the vision, brand becomes a little less important in the early days. But if you're going to go in the app store and most of the people that are going to download your app to give it a shot are just never going to talk to you, you're not going to be like, hey, can I get 15 minutes of your time to get feedback on my startup? 100%. Your brand's going to be more important in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you have face-to-face time with your customers, we didn't talk about it at all in this presentation, but getting the subtext here is maybe how do you achieve validation that you have a brand that accomplishes your goals, right? And there's a bunch of different ways to do that. That might be performance ads that are generating an awesome ROI, but it can also be done qualitatively by showing people a bunch of work and getting their feedback. And I think what's important is if you have a conduit to your early customers, you can engage them just as you would for like customer development to learn about like, you know, what would make them buy, what they want from your product. You could do something similar with your brand. You can kind of tease different directions and try to figure out what's resonating. And I think what the big mistake I see people make here is they ask questions like, which do you like better? Or do you like this or not? Or rate this on a scale of 1 to 10. What you actually want is to identify the strategic. You want to have confidence in what you are trying to get people to feel. And then you want to ask them how things make them feel to figure out if it's accomplishing that goal. Because oftentimes the favorite execution might just be the most familiar execution. And what you actually want is the one that works per your own understanding of works. So maybe that helps. I hope I sort of gotten the direction of the answer there.
I think the number one question is, I think people got a lot of value out of all the information you provided. Will you be able to share the slides and I can send them out?
We'll get the slides out, sure.
All right, yeah. So tomorrow we'll get slides, we'll get a recording. It might take me 2 days. I got a lot of stuff coming up, but we'll get it out there for everyone. Femi also asks, where should it be handled in an organization, sales or marketing? I think largely marketing is where it usually sits as you grow and actually get an internal brand presence. But like Cassie said, often it's an agency in the beginning.
I've never heard of it live in sales, but you should have a good relationship with sales because sales is your best proxy for the insights from your customers. And you always want to be learning and trying to figure out what's resonating and working. So stay close.
We do have somebody who boldly shared their brand details. I don't know if
Let's do it.
If you'd want to take a look at it. If you go to, I will send you the link. It's in the chat. I don't know if you can see the CUA, but Femi, who's asked a ton of great questions throughout the presentation, says, here's his brand, and he would love your thoughts.
Let's look at it. What? Okay.
I just posted it in the chat. So it's bubbleprojector.com with only one B in the second B. And you can maybe share your screen and open it up if you want to. Femi, you are brave. I take no personal responsibility for anything Cassie is about to say.
I'm nice. Here we go. Say hello to Bubble, the first smart theater for kids. Bubble, bubbler, about Bubble. Give your kids the best and the safest entertaining experience with Bubble. Available soon. Got some social proof. Okay, what do I think here? I like the name. It does have a problem, which is it's hard to know how to say it. That is something that can be overcome with success, but it feels sort of like intuitively aligned with your segment. I think that your word mark here is kind of like playful and fun. My overall feedback here, and this is going to mix marketing and sort of like brand, is that this is extremely Bubble first. You're introducing your object as a character. You are describing what it is and you are showing it, but I do not see any benefits. You should always lead with benefits. At the very least, they should be functional benefits, but ideally they would actually be emotional benefits. So my advice would be to spend more time with something like that messaging framework. And like let's see, let's actually learn more about this so I can guess at what this thing does. Made for kids, okay. I know that. That's actually the one thing I didn't need to know. The storyteller. Each figurine is a different color, has different sides in it. Yeah. So what is it? Like spur your child's imagination to life with on-demand stories from, you know, a world of imaginative characters. Like that's the pitch. Like it needs to be like the emotional benefit to the child, the functional benefit in terms of like learning and developmental growth or whatever that the parent cares about, and it needs to be a little bit of a how. So I think that you're a little bit stuck in what and how, and you need to think benefits, and the rest of the brand I think could sort of come together around that. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. This thing looks super cool, and I wish you well.
I think it's a great example of one of our past programming too, is when you really think, especially in the early days of a startup, when nobody's going to be familiar with, you know, your name or your site or whatnot, so they don't come in with preconceived knowledge, is like, think of it as an offering, not just as a product. And
Yeah.
so in the case of this is a great example where the offering literally is appealing to two different audiences. One, will it entertain my children? But my child is not going to pull out their credit card and pay for this. So you don't need to be like, this will entertain my children like crazy. Or like breakfast cereal, which literally advertises to kids like, scream at your mom and dad to buy this for you next time you're in the store. Kids aren't going through the internet and finding projectors. So there's an additional sale of like, well, I liked that other screen you were on because it kind of addressed both sides of it. It's like fun, educational, tactile, but also not, you know, not scary, no blue light, won't keep your kids up, you know, trusted, you know, not going to fry your, you know, the both sides of that.
Yeah, 100%. I actually, okay, hearing you talk, I agree with everything you said. I did not understand it fully. I thought this thing talked to you. This is a projector. Okay, I thought you were in a category creation world, which is really hard because, as you said, Ryan, when people don't have a reference point for your offering when it's new, you have to teach them what it is before you can even get to the benefits. It's really frustrating. It's why category creation is just like objectively harder. Everyone in the startup founders should be rightfully scared. This actually does have, this is a projector for kids. So that's cool. It has a reference point. I didn't get that because I couldn't actually see, maybe I've just cropped this badly. Yeah, like this is very ripe for video. I think you need to show the projector working. You need to show the kid enjoying it. You need to show the family being sort of satisfied with their purpose, with their purchase, show the character talking, etc. Show. Oh, here it is. This is awesome.
Yeah. I think an interesting thing here, if you go to your archetypes too, is I feel like this is sitting somewhere in between innocent and caregiver, where like the innocence to me is the colors, the characters, like the very you know, playful sort of nature, but then the appeal is for a caregiver kind of company where it's like, oh, don't worry, like we're going to entertain your kids, but we're also, you know, entertaining your kids with a screened device is something that most parents are immediately going to, like, my kid wants to be on the phone all day. Are they rotting their brains? All they're going to do is play video games. And maybe choosing that lane would help you narrow in on the marketing approach.
Well, I love what you just said, Ryan, and you hinted at something else, which is like, what about counter positioning, right? Like, why, like, parents are deathly afraid of screen time with phones. Like, you could totally counter position against like the worst of the digital addiction stuff with a magician archetype or with a rebel archetype. Rebel is very appealing to kids, you know, like the magician seems logical here. So like, that's another place to explore. I think that if you show up with a brand, if you like, I agree, it reads as caregiver innocent, but that's because that's just like, that's just what toys are, right? So it's like within that, like you should zig when you should zag when people are you should get away from what's obvious, I guess.
But
and
I could see a magician approach would be like digital entertainment that like fulfills your kids but doesn't rot their brains. Like that seems like an impossibility, right? Parents are
really
so
nice
drawn.
Statement.
Yeah, parents love to give the kids the iPad and like then feel immediately guilty. Like, oh man, I just need 2 hours to do something and I know this will shut them up. But what is going on long term? Not even pretend. If your corporate purpose is to fix that and lead with it. But there's many other approaches.
Exactly.
You want to do another one of these?
Get crystal clear about who you're talking to and when. This is a classic B2P2K startup, which is business to parent to kid, right? So like you have these two very different audiences. You should understand them. You should understand the messaging goals and what resonates for each of them, and then see if you can create a common universe with a single archetype around them. But that's not always true. Like if you go to Roblox and you look at like the front of it for the kids, and then you find like the about page and stuff that the parents look at, like they kind of take the brand in a different direction there because the needs are so different. But Yeah, I think there's a lot of, this is super fertile. It seems like a super cool product and you can do, there's a lot of opportunity here.
Cool. Do you want to do another one? Somebody else has
Yeah,
volunteered.
let's do another one. Let's keep
All
going.
right. This is Andrew with so this is going to run into your first one. Enciente.
Inciente Health. Let's see. I'm having a, oh, there we go. All right.
Okay, it's French, so that is helpful for the English speakers in the audience.
Was this automatically translated?
It doesn't look like it.
Okay,
Normally
this is
there's a
English.
flag.
All right, let's walk through this here. Okay, Inciente Health. Cool. Automating the weight, bowel, and bladder charting process for skilled nursing communities. Product second to none. At each toileting event, Inciente's Health Smart Commode will automatically capture residents' body weight and body and bladder data, blah, 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 problems that we directly address. And there's benefits of the Seat Pro. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is this might be in the category of kind of mimic. Like, it feels to me like you have accomplished the basic standing up of a brand that feels like a healthcare company. Your logo feels familiar and reminiscent of other healthcare companies. You have very simple, recognizable iconography of the the healthcare plus in there. You have the word health right in there. You have very basic but coherent art direction, right? You have a color palette that you're applying consistently. You have a typographical hierarchy. You have you're sort of like explaining how the thing works and its benefits. We change lives. My number one feedback to you, if you could just go do one thing, is okay, well, maybe there's more than one thing, but the thing I would think of first of all is it feels like you left your work in the webpage, right? Like product second to none. That feels like the thought starter that should get you to write the headline for why your product is second to none, right? The problems that we directly address, like tell us what, I mean, we don't need to see that. You just need to tell us what it is with your headlines. Like most people scan, your headlines are your most important thing. And so they should be really communicating information, not like asking rhetorical questions. Lastly, same feedback as before, automating the weight, bowel, and bladder charting process for skilled nursing communities. This is what you are. I would challenge you to find a benefit here. As cheesy as it is, I think you would probably have a more impactful brand statement if you got some stock imagery of like a satisfied clinician at a laptop who like feels confident that the bowel experiences of his customers are like good or whatever it is. Like that's probably better than just jumping right into your screenshots because that is not about benefits. That's about like the how and what and the features and stuff. So that's kind of my first impression here. Does anyone have any follow-up questions or anything else you'd like us to hack on?
That was from Andrew, who hopefully is still here for that while we were taking a look at it. I would say there was some stuff in the chat about recognizable words. I am like mildly fluent in some Romance languages, but I'm a Westerner from the Northeast, and I did not immediately know that that was a French word or a non-English word. So there is some choice between, is it like I think that, would you call it coinable words?
Yeah, coined.
Yeah, if you're doing a coined thing, like the pronunciation, I feel like to me should be immediately obvious. Although I run a company called Gust, and the amount of times a week I have to say, oh, it's like a gust of wind because it's a guttural word and it's a short word.
Yeah,
It's not always perfect.
Misheard. This is like the UX of the name, and it does matter. It like Inciente is Inciente.
I think it means fortification in France. It's like a certain kind of building type and fortification, but it just wasn't immediately obvious to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably would not choose this name. I'm kind of on team. I'm on team coined and empty vessel so strongly that I would prefer to overcome pronunciation and kind of other usability issues like being too short or too airy or whatever, than to be stuck with a name like whatever, Bowel Pal or something. But
this did make me think of the Squatty Potty, and if you wanted to go the Jester route or something like that, like that campaign was legendary.
But what are they doing? They're making fun of, I mean, like their name is also part of the joke.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's sort of like an acknowledgement that names like that are bad, but they're embracing it as part of the humor of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. All right, I have 9 more minutes, but we had a couple more questions I want to get to. This is actually just about your insurance product. So I do not believe Vouch offers branding consulting to these services or anything like that. Is that true?
It's not. We do this. This is all just sort of like happenstance that we tried this out with Y Combinator because I had been doing. Let me tell the story. So basically at Vouch, we have such like wide brand surface area. We have so many people talking to our clients that I started training our company in the principles of our brand. And the easiest way to do that was to teach everybody at Vouch the brand archetypes framework and which one we were. That way they can carry our sort of brand in the shorthand of our brand in their mind. And it makes it easy for them to be like, that's on brand, that's off brand. So then we realized, hey, this is actually pretty interesting. Maybe we could share this with some of our partners. And so we started doing this for YC and others, and now you, Gust. And so it's kind of taken on a life of its own. But no, we do not offer brand consulting services. I do this just for fun. I will give you my personal information. I love like hopping on calls and giving this kind of direct feedback. Like you can literally book a time with me, and just as an offer of good faith, I will like offer whatever guidance I can. I've hired a lot of creative agencies in my time. I've worked at creative agencies. I've been in-house. I can try to help you get pointed in the right direction. I know a few people that can maybe help, but yeah, there's no formal service or money exchange here.
But they offer great insurance products for startups that are pieced down by much more criteria, so that you're not just going to get some blank offering of like pay us thousands of dollars to just get covered. They can actually find more innovative business models. And also the founder of the site you still have up does say that they have a great tagline, which is no behind left behind. It's at the bottom of the page, but I do think that might actually be
Is
more
that a great
elevatable.
tagline? I mean, it's funny. I would, yeah, yeah, it's a great tagline, but is it the right tagline? I don't know.
You got to iterate.
It's your archetype. What
Yeah.
you know, how it's all got a ladder up. Yeah, and I guess yes, go become a Vouch customer. You're gonna have to buy business insurance at some point. We're very fast and we're very affordable for small startups. And if you are a client, maybe I'll work extra hard. I'm sure they'll be like take better care of them if they ever come to us.
Our Gust Launch customers are definitely our lowest SLA first line of support kind of people. I put the link in the chat again. We do have a small perk for getting business insurance with Vouch, so use that for a small discount. And I think that
We got one more question here about getting an internship at creative agency. That's a great question. It's been like, I'm not sure. Okay, what are the paths in? Go to art school, become trained. So let me back up. There are no internships for creative directors. What there are entry-level jobs in the disciplines that are under creative director. So that is either brand strategy, visual design, art direction, etc. UX, digital design, there's like a bunch. Like you kind of have to start there. Most people get to creative direction either through brand strategy and brand writing, like brand messaging, or through brand design, visual design. I would actually think that the strategy and writing side is the more common path, just because the goal of a creative director requires so much executive communications and kind of like, analytical and ROI and stuff like that. It just tends to like bring that type up. But so I guess the next question is like, how do you break in at all? Well, I think if you're not at art school, my advice would be go somewhere small. Because if you go somewhere small, there's a lot higher probability that you're going to kind of get to do a lot of different things. So
small, you mean company-wise, right? Not a small art school.
Agency. Like agencies are awesome. They start as studios that are literally like one person. Then they go, 2 people, 5 people, 10 people, 15 people. That's a very common size for a brand, for an agency or a studio. Find one that you like. Preferably they're well regarded and they do good work. Get in the door any way you can, and then get your hands on everything. Try to go to all the meetings you can and try to soak up the strategy part. Like, don't stay in your silo, don't stay in your lane, get out and get the strategy part, and then sort of make your moves from there. that would be my advice for someone trying to break into the creative industries. Or
Yeah, and
go in-house at tech where no one knows anything about how to do this. And then you just sort of like fake it till you make it.
I have seen a lot of front-end engineers who had designer backgrounds get into early stage startups and small companies and be the only person who gave a damn about the word brand, or, you know, read a couple
Yeah.
books and was just like, the CEOs just saying left and right, like, you know, can we just have a 45-minute meeting where I can get like some alignment? And people are like, oh, somebody who actually like has words that mean things in this space, like this is great. Which is also some of the benefits of startups. It's high risk, but it can also be high reward, even with your career, not just with, well, Cassidy and I are both working at startups, so, you know, we have to say that. But
Yep.
This was fantastic, Cassidy. Thank you so much for your additional time and pulling out some examples live. I know uncomfortable for both sides, but I thought that was super valuable, and I appreciate the audience for volunteering that. I will make sure that we get a wonderful teardown email, including the slides and the recording and any kind of like follow-up opportunities that Cassidy will provide you guys. We'll figure that out offline, but look forward for an email from me within the next couple of days that just lays all that stuff out.
Awesome. Thank you for the time, Ryan. It was nice meeting all of you, and good luck in what you're making. I'm really excited for everybody.
Me
Brand
too.
part's the fun part, so good luck.
Have a great one, everybody. Bye.